live. Check, check, 1, 2. Check. Sweet. Okay. Audio is live, visual is live, chat is live. Sweet. Welcome back to the stream, everyone. We're going to be doing some more of the JavaScript and Phaser course today. And last time we checked out the Phaser basics, basically dissecting each major part of a Phaser game setup, the preload, the create, and the update functions, as well as how to actually configure it to display on a canvas, on an HTML canvas. So we learned all of the fundamental structure of that, and today we're going to be coloring a Pegasus. So they got a little Pegasus coloring board set up here with your palette underneath. None of it is functional yet. You can't click on anything. It's just a still image at the moment. But they have it drawn for us, and we will be building the functionality today, where you can change the color of each portion of the Pegasus. All right, so let's get started. We've been given the basic layout of our game, and it's up to us, the game developer, to provide the part of our game that makes it playable. So basically, imagine like the artist has given you all of the art necessary, and now we need to code it to make it playable. It sort of bridges the gap between art and interactive art, which is essentially gaming. We need to create the mechanics of the game, the part that makes it more than a picture of a Pegasus. In game.js, find the create function, which is right here. Near line 10, there is a for loop where we iterate over each shape in the Pegasus. Inside that for loop, some commands have been written to describe the presentation of the Pegasus itself. This is where we set the stroke color and line width of the shape, among other things. We want to follow this up by defining the shape's interactability. Make each shape in this loop interactive by calling setInteractive on it. So each shape in this loop interactive. So underneath here, they've already declared all of the shapes: shape smoothness, stroke color is stroked, set origin, line width. Set origin is interesting. So that's x of 0, y of 1 for each shape. I wonder why they had a y value of 1 there. Maybe so that it's not touching the top of the screen. Anyway, let's excuse me, let's make that interactive. So we need to just simply say each of these, shape smoothness, dot set interactive, and we can leave that as the method itself. Then we can copy this down and apply it for the, let's see, we have 5 of these, so 4 more, 2, 3, 4, and then just rename the property inside of the shape, which is stroke color. Let's see, we have is stroked, whether there is a line around it or not. Smoothest, this will be set origin, and lastly will be line width. Okay, so now did you call shape set interactive within the for loop over shape of Pegasus shape? Oh, okay, you don't actually need to do that individually. You just need to set interactive for the shape itself. And the shape has different properties, but this is a method being called on the shape. That makes it a lot neater for the code. It's just one line, super simple, just the whole shape, set it as interactive versus assigning it to every property individually, which that wouldn't make much sense because it's like you would be making a color or a number be interactive and you can't actually click on that. But the shape itself, which is the artwork or whatever hitbox we're designing, is now interactive and it's clickable. All right, so when one of the shapes is clicked on, we should update its fill color to the active color that we keep track of in our game state. We'll work on updating that active color later, but for now we'll start with the default in-game state selected color. So they have that up here, set in the game state object. selected color on line 3. Start by creating a handler for each shape on pointer up. Okay, so the handlers, if we remember from last time, we saw the, let's see, so it's shape dot, is it input, right? It's like input dot on, and then pointer up. This has to be set in a string. Pointer up, and then the function of whatever they have it set to, so the selected color. But I'm not sure if that's correct. I feel like there's one more property, like sub-property, that we need to put there. Let's see if there's any more hints within the code itself for that. Oh, whoa, this is all, so this is all the function body here. This is all the shapes. These are all the vectors of the different shapes for the Pegasus. And that goes on for quite the ways, probably like 1,000. Yeah, like 500. Yeah, look at all that. It's all the very specific pixel specific shapes and vectors for each of the shapes. That's cool. I wonder if they designed that in like Illustrator and took, or something, some design software took the vectors and just put it in. Oh, and these are for each, these are separated into each of the shapes as well. And they're putting in a scene argument. Okay, we'll investigate that later. That's very, very interesting though, because they're doing a new phaser. They're adding a math vector to phaser. But anyway, let's head back to where we were before. So other than that, there isn't much to the rest of the code. We have our config file at the bottom. We have a get Pegasus static shapes function, which puts in the scene variable as an argument. I'm not sure where that is. Let's see here. Let color, let particle, spacing, translation, palette box. I'm just looking at all the variables and seeing where this is set. Let's do a Control F on this and see where that is. So it's referenced 59 times. Where is it referenced first? Is it just from the config? Yeah, it's just the config file then, huh? So that scene is the property within the config. I suppose that's interesting because, yeah, okay. I understand the control flow now. So the scene is set up through the config object, and then that becomes a property that can be accessed in the create function. And then you don't even have to, like, you don't have to type in config.scene. It just becomes, like, the layer that you're in is the config, so then you can access the scene that way. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so we're looking for the correct syntax for shape input pointer up. I think there's another thing to add to that. Yeah, we got to add in our function first, right? Creating a handler for each shape on pointer up. So the shape will handle all of the shapes that we have. Basically, what we saw, all of the like 500 lines of input down below is all of the shapes, and they're each assigned to like the master shape function. Game state dot selected color. So we need to update its fill color. So on pointer up, we will update the shape's fill color. So shape dot fill color. I guess you could also just say this for that, but we'll keep it a shape dot fill color. This is going to be equal to game state dot selected color. So essentially the color that you click will be what it turns into. Selected color. I think that should be enough for the basics of it, but I don't think this is correct. I think there's another thing, like another sub-property here. Let's see what that is. We learned that last time. Oh, it's not input. It's literally just on. We don't need the input there. I think that was for something else. I think that was actually when you're assigning like cursors. You put input cursors or cursors.input. And then whatever the rest of that is to set up the basic cursors. But for this, when you're just oh, you already have it set as interactive, you can just simply put dot on method, and then something else is off. Shape.fill color. Do we need a this here? This? No. To create a pointer up handler for each shape. Pegasus shape for let shape of Pegasus shapes. Let's see. Set interactive shape pointer on this fill color game state dot selected color. Fill color. Wait, where is it? Update its fill color, but the shape doesn't have a fill color. It has a stroke color. Do we need to add in that property? Because this doesn't actually exist yet. But for now, we'll start with the default game state selected color. So, do we need to add this in? I don't see the fill color there. The stroke color is there. Equals game state dot selected color. Does that work? No. Okay. Do we just need to declare it as just an empty property? Let's delete that for a second. I think if you add it down there and you're assigning it, it'll add it as a property anyway, because we're assigning it here. Game state dot fill color equals game state dot selected color. Shape dot on. Let's check out the hint here. Yes, we do have a function. Did we not have... Oh, we actually have to declare it. We can't just put it as an argument. We have to declare the function there. So this will be function, parentheses. All of this is going to be within our code block of the function, right? There we go. And now we can just shift that down to here and let it be a function within the shape. There we go. Okay, cool. Cool. Just a little syntax mishap there. All right, inside our pointer up callback handler, update this fill color, the fill color of the shape that's been clicked to that. So we already did that. We did that in one step, I believe. Oh, this dot fill color. Yeah, so it just doesn't want game state. It wants you to use the shorthand of this. Since we already declared the shape object, then we can just access it through this. Okay, cool. So far so good. Let's move on. Now we update the color. Okay, so now that we can change the color of our Pegasus, let's get to work on making the palette selection functional. When we click on a color, we want that to become the selected color. We need to use a third argument to our event handler method on, where we give extra context to be used within our event handler. We want each circle in our color palette circle, to be aware of the color that it indicates so that it can update the game state dot selected color. The syntax for our event context is this. So you have an important number that you want to use within the function of your handler. You say that equals the important number, and then the third argument is you have your important number and your game object. So let me see if I can reverse engineer what they just said, reiterate it. So we want each circle in our color palette circle to be aware of the color that it indicates so that it can update game state dot selected color. Okay. So they created important number to be some important piece of data that we want to use inside of the event handler. We call the pointer up to create an event handler. Inside, this refers to our game object unless the third object is present, which is the context. Since we provide a third argument, this now has properties important number and game object, which are accessed using this important number and this game object. So this is kind of recursive, where it's like, once you put in a third argument here of an object, then both of these are placed in as this, right? So then this, right? The first this becomes the important number, and then the second this becomes this. Or is it running the code for both? So it's like saying that this then becomes important number. It runs the code for that. So basically important number.gameObject.x equals important number.important number. It's a little confusing, but I sort of understand the flow direction of that. I just don't know what's happening in this line after it feeds back into itself. In the code, we update the x value of game object to be whatever the value is inside of important number. But since this doesn't refer to the game object anymore, we need to pass that into the context given by the third argument as well. As we continue to create games of greater complexity, knowing the value of this makes our game development easier. In this case, by explicitly providing a third argument in our event handler, we know exactly what this is. Therefore, we've also improved the readability of our code because our other developers will know what this is within our handler. When we and other developers on our team understand our code, it makes debugging or adding new features quicker and smoother. Okay. This almost seems like it's adding a level of complexity that doesn't need to be there. But I think that's just because of my lack of understanding of what it's doing specifically. So it sounds like this, right? This is before you add the third argument is looking at the game object. So then it's saying GameObject.GameObject.x equals GameObject.ImportNumber. So you're basically just adding two properties, or rather you're adding the GameObject property to itself, but we don't want to do that. So instead we want to say ImportNumber.GameObject. So as a property of GameObject and then an x. But then they say that that doesn't work because you're not referring to any x value that exists. It's just undefined, so they need to add this argument. So then GameObject, are you confused yet? GameObject.GameObject.x equals ImportNumber.ImportNumber? I'm not sure. I really don't know what's going on in this line after it feeds back in. They explained it, but it wasn't quite clear. I really need to see it like broken out to understand it, because right now it just seems like it's either redundant or it's canceling itself out. But we'll continue on. We'll just know that we can add a third argument that will help us with our palettes. So we want to use our palette circles at the bottom to update the color when we click on them. In game.js, find the part of our create function where we iterate over each of the palette circles. So near line 38. Add a click handler. Okay, so the first thing we should do is set each palette circle as interactive. So, okay, that's easy to do. Palette circle dot set interactive. Set interactive like so. Okay, now let's add the actual click handler. For each palette circle, create an event handler for the pointer up event. Let's start by making an empty one and add to it as we need it. Now, they say for each, but we don't actually have to type in the method of for each, because the palette circle is kind of like a category of objects. All of the circles are being stored here. We could investigate like the breadcrumbs of how that's the case, but all we need to know now is that those are being stored. All of the circles here are being stored within the object of palette circle as like the master object. So now, with that set, then we can say palette circle as a whole, so each one of them, on pointer up, set that in a string. This will then be just empty right now, so just empty function for the moment. Okay. Now we want to provide the color we define inside the loop to the handler. So let's add that as context by passing in an object as the third argument to .on. Pass color as the third argument to palette circle so that we can use it within the handler. So this is going to be added after our functions. Put a comma after the function. We're going to make this an object, right? Color. Okay, so that's the third argument. I don't know why it has spaces. I don't think it really needs spaces, but we'll add that in. Okay. Okay, so now that we have all the pieces, let's use the handler to update the selected color in our game state. Inside the body, update GameState.selectedColor to be the new color we passed in as context. So this argument controls what this is. I think to be the new color we passed in as context. Wait a second. This needs to be reverse. So game state dot selected color equals color dot, or rather this dot color. Is that how it would go? I don't think so. That doesn't feel right. We'll try it though. Let's bring this down at this line so we can look at it a little more closely. Okay, so this color. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know what would be at the end of this, right? Let's try that. Okay, apparently that is correct. So GameState.selected color, essentially the color that we saw at the beginning up here on line 3, right? Line 3 is that. Would then change as we clicked something, right? So pointer up on one of the circles. That selected color would then become this color, which this is referring to this argument. And then the color property of this does exist because what we're doing in a roundabout way is saying that color, right? This color is now an alias for palette circle. You could put anything in here. You could put like coconut and it would still work, right? Or it would not. No, it would not. Oh, because coconut would not be a property, yeah. So it's not an alias for palette circle. Scratch that. It is the property within palette circle that we're accessing. So basically you can imagine this like whatever the main object or property you were editing, whatever you were calling this method on, this third argument is now referencing a property within that. So it's kind of like the for in, the for keyword, the for loop, and then an in keyword. It's kind of like the same functionality there. This is basically saying for each palette circle within that, this color is going to change, right? Based off of what happens here. Or this color is going to be accessed at least. We want to access that color. So then what happens is that the this here becomes the color property of each palette circle. Okay. Wanted to explain that for myself, my own understanding, and for you because that's not intuitive looking at this. But yeah, so whatever is here in the third argument, that is now the property. It's accessing the property of whatever you're calling the method on. And then this refers to that property. So it's going a layer deeper. Or rather, no, it's not going a layer deeper. It's saying that, wait, yeah, that's confusing because you could just have it be where there's no color, right? You could just have it be this. Hold on. Maybe just, yeah, it's literally the same. It's going to be the same because if you select it, then it's going to say palette circle dot color, which is the property. This color. So whatever the palette circle is that you're pressing, that you're clicking, it's going to access that color property. The selected color then becomes that color property. There is no, this is redundant. You don't need this. You don't need that third argument. Really strange. Okay. I fail to understand that. Maybe I will later, but don't know. Indicating selection. So coloring the Pegasus is great. The playing aspect of our game is figured out, but we need to consider our presentation. If we want someone playing our game to know where to click and how to actually color the Pegasus, we're going to need to work on the interface. So let's try it out first. What does the current code have? Okay, yeah, so it is changing. The game state selected color property is changing to the color that we click. However, we don't see the color that we're pressing. There's no highlight or anything. And we also don't see the area of the Pegasus that we're coloring. So it is playable, but it's not very user-friendly. You know, it's not very clear. So you may have noticed that clicking on some parts of the Pegasus don't perfectly line up with the shapes. Really? Let's see. exactly line up with the shapes. I mean, I suppose like there's some little bits there. I'm not sure what they mean. Okay, so this has to do with how the shapes are stacked on top of each other. There's a lot of ways to fix that potentially, but a solution will... Oh, I see what they're saying. So they're saying like the wing back here, you can't select the whole part of it because it's covered by the other wing. So there's a lot of ways to fix that potentially, but a solution that will work well is giving the person playing the game some insight into what part of the Pegasus will be colored after they click. We're going to use the screen blend mode to indicate which part of the Pegasus is going to be selected. Blend modes dictate how a filled-in shape interacts with other shapes visible, somewhat like changing the opacity and color of the shape. The result will be that our highlighted section will turn semi-transparent and white with a white outline. Okay, so inside of our for loop that iterates over our shapes, create a pointer over for each shape. So this one here, add a pointer over and a pointer out. Okay. Create a pointer over for each shape. So we need to call in shape, shape.on. This is going to be pointer over, so whenever we hover over it, hover our mouse over it, or not on, pointer over, that's the hover. Then we have a function, I think that can just be empty for now, they didn't tell us what to put in there. Okay, inside our new pointer over event, change the blend mode of this shape by calling this set blend mode, phaser blend modes screen. So then the dot blend mode, or I guess you don't need to have it be an assignment, you're just like literally declaring a new property here. So set blend mode, and then phaser.blend modes dot screen, all capitals. Okay. Cool. Perfect. But the parts of the Pegasus don't stop being white. Ah, okay, I see, yeah. So the pointer over is working, but when you remove your cursor, when you move your cursor away, it's still white. It still has that screen blend mode. Okay, so we need a pointer out event handler that sets the shape's blend mode back to normal after we stop hovering over it. Okay. So shape.on, this will be the inverse of what we just did. So this is going to be a pointer out function okay. Then inside of your pointer out event handler, use this set blend mode to set the shape's blend mode back to normal. Okay, cool. So within this, then we put in this dot set blend mode to phaser dot blend modes dot normal, all caps. And then the blend modes words themselves are not camel case. There's a capital V there too. Okay, cool. Good so far. Now we have a little hover interaction. So when we hover over it, it'll turn, 50% transparent, or do the screen blend mode. And then when we move away, that one doesn't seem, the body of the horse doesn't seem to be working immediately when we move it away. Interesting. That's the one that we're just like the closest to, I guess. Right. See, like even if we move, yeah. So the sensitivity of it is interesting. Whatever's like closest and has the most area, then it starts. But anyway, that's still functional. We still can clearly see what part of the Pegasus we are going to color. And then if we flip back and forth between shapes, then it's immediate, right? It's immediate what's going on there. But if it's like it doesn't know whether you're on it or not, sometimes it sees that you're closer to it. It might just be a matter of like it displaying literally just how it displays. But let's move on. We got our Got our color. So now if we select a color, we can see what part of the horse we're coloring, part of the Pegasus we're coloring, but we don't know what color we have currently selected. If we can step away from this and then come back, we're like, okay, what color did I have selected last? You can always just click and then change it, but it'd be nice to know which one you're on currently. So, indicating palette selection. Our game is a lot more playable now than people, or now that people know where they're clicking on, but how can we keep track of what color is currently active? By adding relevant hover events to our palette circles. So we know that a palette circle has been clicked before it becomes active, except for the default. So we only need to write a pointer out handler for our palette circles to handle the highlighted, or to highlight the one that's been selected. Let me read that again. So now that we know that a palette circle has been clicked before it becomes active, except for the default. Right. Yeah. So when the game begins, you don't have anything selected. So create a pointer out handler for each palette circle. Give it a context that lets it access not just palette circle, but also color. Ah, okay, that's where the context part comes in. Pointer out for each palette circle. Each of the palette circles. Yeah, pointer out event to palette circle here. Okay. This will then be a handler for this. So palette, like we did before, palette circle dot on. This is going to be pointer out, function. And basically it seems like they're doing this in reverse. So like they're saying that the pointer out will tell you that that color is no longer selected to highlight the one that's been selected. Oh, that's interesting. So it's like as you move your cursor away, then it will select that color. I'm guessing they're going to put like a highlight over the one that you're hovering over, and then as you move your cursor away, then it will actually turn the color yeah, like have a little outline color. We'll see what they do. Okay, so we want particle circle, but also color context. Okay, so I think we just need to add in the context. They're not telling us what to put in the function yet. We'll just make it blank and then add in a context. So put those braces in. Palette circle, and comma, and then we're putting in color as the other property. Okay, cool. So we want our default behavior to be for the event to be setting. We want our default behavior for the event to be, there's a little bit of a grammar issue there, for the event to be setting the stroke color to the default black. Okay. Start off our event handler by setting the palette circle stroke color to black. Okay, so this is going to be an outline, black outline here. I think we can just say this dot stroke color, or maybe not, because this then it has two, right? We don't want to access both of the parts of the context. So say palette circle dot stroke color equals black, which is 0x60000000. Alrighty, that was wrong. Oh, this dot palette circle dot stroke color. Okay. I could just move on and not question that, but I do question it. This, what is this? So this is palette circle, right? Yeah, I really need like a breakdown of what the context is doing, because this makes no sense. Like it's gonna say palette circle dot palette circle. So there's a palette circle within the palette circle? Or it's saying like the palette circle object, which is, or the container, then has a palette circle property, which is itself, then it's accessing the stroke color. So that just like, okay. This then allows us to have both of these, right? So then the color will also be, it will also have a palette circle? Yeah, I don't understand. Why would you need to do this? I feel like if you delete the context and then delete the this, it would be the same. But anyway, okay. So now as we hover over it and hover out, nothing happens because the stroke color is black by default, so nothing happens with that that we can see yet. So next we want to check if our current color is the same color as GameState.selectedColor. Okay. Write an if statement comparing our selected color with this color. So inside of this, or where do we have with this dot color? Inside of the function? Okay. So we want to check if our current color is the same color as the GameState.selectedColor. So this dot color then, yeah? But if it's palette circle, right? If it's the palette circle color we're accessing, why do we need to have a second context? Because the this would be the same. The this would just be palette circle. You could literally just replace it with that. I don't know. I'm going to try to refactor this after we do it all. Test the theory. That is probably incorrect, but I will try it. Okay, so we need to see if this color is equal to GameState.selectedColor. Yeah. Okay, so it's equal to GameState.selectedColor. If it is, we'll do something we don't know yet. We're just gonna check to see if that is truthy. Okay. And then if the color of the palette circle is the same color as GameState.selectedColor, let's give our selected palette circle a nice gold outline. So if it is equal, right, it's saying like if you have clicked it and the selected color has changed, then wait a second. What? Okay, I'm gonna write in the next line. It's turning it gold after you selected a color and move the cursor away. That much I know. Palette circle, our selected palette circle. So it's going to be this dot palette circle, meaning the selected one. Dot color, right? Or dot stroke color. Stroke color. Then is going to equal 0xFFC836. Voila. Now if we move our mouse over it, we click it, yeah. But the problem is that, yeah. Now when we click it and move away, we can click other ones and do the same. So there's nothing to stop it from remaining gold when after we click another one, it just stays gold. Let's see if they show us how to do that in the next step. Wait a second. Wait a second. See, theirs is totally functional. Look at that. That's weird. Theirs is totally functional at the end of... Like, okay, I want to go back and see if I can do that myself. They didn't walk us through the whole setup, because now if we click it and move away, we can click another palette circle, and then they all become gold. So they've done two other things. One, they've done where you can see where your cursor is actually like which palette circle your cursor is actually hovering over, and then also when you click a new one, the old highlight disappears. But now you just can make it like everything is gold. And the only way that it comes back is if you hover back over it. Like, yeah, you just hover back over it, and then it eventually turns back to black. It's weird. It's weird. Okay, so let's try to refactor that, because that's, yeah, it's a little confusing, a little clunky. Let's see. Where were we? We were at this line here. So far we have a check to see if the color is equal to the selected color. So if you've clicked it, and you move your pointer away, then it turns into gold. We need an else statement here. Else, if it's not, like, see. We need that to be on pointer up, not pointer out. We need to have it be like if once you click it, it turns gold. Is there ever a case where once we move away, we want it to change back to black? Sort of, but that's only with black and white. Basically, we just want it to be, if you click it, it turns gold. And that can be with this check to say that if it's the selected color, then it turns gold. But then you need a way to say that the one that was not selected, or the one that was selected previously, so just if this color equals GameState.selected color, this palette circle then becomes that. This does not need to be in the pointer out section. Let's move this. This can be, it could be in the pointer up section. And then let's reset. Okay. Weird. So if this color palette circle GameState.selected color equals this dot color, and then saying since that is true, then this palette circle then becomes, yeah. So maybe just get rid of the if statement entirely. Well, what did I do? I pressed page up. Let's try that again. Let's go down. Okay. Get rid of the conditional. I think that since we already have the conditional of the pointer up, we can just make it gold. No? Really? This dot palette circle dot stroke color. So maybe we just need to say, or put in a second palette circle. I feel like the context is messing us up. All right, so it's like, that's why they had to separate it. Oh, there was something there. Okay, so, but if you do a pointer out, then it will not remain gold, right? So now this is where the if statement comes in. So this part where it turns black is actually going to be the else part of the condition. Okay, so then else this, right? Else it turns black. It's happening behind the scenes. It's just going to remain black, but you have to say explicitly like it's going to turn gold. It's going to turn black. So now, yeah. So now if we click it, it'll turn gold, and if we move our pointer away, it will remain gold. And then we can hover over our other ones and say that they're not the selected colors. So now, yeah, see, we're one step closer. Now we know, like, if we click it, it'll turn gold. If we remove our cursor, it will stay gold. And then if we go to the previous one and we hover over it and then bring our pointer back out, it will turn black. However, that is, like I said, just one step closer. We need it to switch as soon as we click the next one. Have the other one not be that color. So how do we do that? We have to be on pointer up, right? So if this palette circle equals gold, on the pointer out, I almost feel like this can just be outside of it completely. Or like we don't even need the pointer out function. If we click it, it turns gold. If we click the next one, that turns gold. So I'm gonna go with this. So let's see, else is black. We can go with this whole conditional block and then delete the pointer out. If we just do a conditional outside of everything and just say that if this color is the game selected color, then the outline of it turns gold, else it stays black. Let's see if that works. What? Okay, what am I missing here? Oh. Let's see. Where's this one going? Before let I, where's this one going? So I go all the way up to the top of create, yeah. How many braces did we have? Oh, because it can't access this. Right, it can't access this. So we need this to be within something if this is going to work. Okay. Let's go back. Let's add the pointer out function back in. Let's have the same functionality that we did. What do we need to access? We need to access the palette circles. So the palette circle color. So if palette circle color equals GameState.selected color. So I think palette circle stroke color, yeah. So let's again go forward. Or hold on, let's just comment this out so that we can save it. Comment that out, and we'll save that bit. Come back to it if we need to. Within here, I want to copy down the conditional, but then change the this keywords. Okay, so this needs to be palette circle dot color. I think it needs to be stroke color or just palette circle. Wait a second. Palette circle dot color. This dot color. So what is the this dot color here? This doesn't need to exist. We already had that. This doesn't need to exist. Color is palette circle dot color. Palette circle dot color does not exist within that. Where is the palette circle dot color? Palette circles is an empty array. Palette box. Is it created down here? Oh, I didn't even close this out. Nope. What? There it goes. Trying to find where the palette circle stroke color, or sorry, the palette circle color is instantiated. Shape on shape. Static shapes, Pegasus shapes. I'm just gonna search where palette circle actually is. Let palette circle equal, oh, this add circle of translation, spacing, and then color. Where's color? Where's color? So palette circle is an object. Translation is spacing divided by 2. Spacing is 440 divided by the length. GameState.palette circles equals an array. And then it says for .palette.length. Okay, so this is the loop. This is the loop that creates the palette circles. Okay. So for whenever the GameState palette length, which is set to 6 at the moment, is greater than I, then it will create another palette circle. And it creates the circle with those properties, with those translation spacing. Palette.length. Where is GameState.palette? Palette box. Palette. Okay, here we go. The palette. Okay, that's the bottom. Right, that's the end of the breadcrumb trail. So palette exists up here with 6 different colors. Those are then accessed. GameState.palette.length. Palette is an array, so then it accesses the length property of the array. spacing of 440. Palette box at rectangle. Let's have this be, hold on, I know what this will change. Let's have this be black. Just have it be black. Well, now it's just going to break because we didn't finish everything else. But that's going to change the background to be black. But let me just set that back so that we know. We know that that's not what's breaking it. Okay, so we got palette circles equals an empty array. So it's saying that palette circle as a variable will equal this add circle. So it'll create palette circles. I don't really know how that's being added back in to the array here. GameState.palette circles. Let's see. So it's using the translation and the spacing data times the number, right? So basically saying that if the palette appears at, 100 pixels, then it will appear at 200 pixels the next time around. Starting out with the initial x value of 515 and the y value of 22. Then having a color. So I guess I don't really understand this method then, because it's accessing a color property. It's accessing the color property of palette up here, which is basically saying that, oh, color, yeah, there's the color property. So it's assigning it as a variable to GameState.palette I. So whatever the I is in the for loop, whatever the index is for that, it'll access that color. Okay, cool. We know where color is. Took a while, but we know where it is. Okay, so palette circle will then have the property of color. It'll have property of translation and spacing, whatever that's called. It'll have an X property, it'll have a Y property, and then it will have a color property. So this should work then. If palette circle.color equals GameState.selected color, we might have to put in palette circle is then an object, right? Create each of the palette circles with one of the colors from the palette. GameState.palette circles equals an empty array. It doesn't say to add it back in, does it? That's really strange. You would think that in the for loop, it would have to return the value of the palette circle, because the only way that this is going to get into here is by doing that, right? This, oh, it's adding this. It's adding it to this, and this is the game state. So GameState.add.circle. Add this dot add rectangle. That palette box equal this dot add rectangle. I feel like I'm still missing one link in the chain, because this is the game state dot add dot circle. So it adds a circle called palette circle to the game state. It apparently adds it into the array called palette circles. I would really like to see how that works, how this is funneled into here and then populates that array. Because it's not returning it. There's no return here. Not returning a value. It's just saying this. That's all that we have to go off of, is whatever this is, which apparently is GameState.palette circles. I don't know how that becomes that, how this becomes that. But anyway, so each circle is added to the palette circles array. Okay, and that's just where that is stored. It's not where the properties are stored, so it's like the container for each one. So if palette circle, yeah. So what happens if we do this? Does that work then? Yes, okay, cool. So now, click on it, what happens? Nothing? Nothing? Okay, well then throw a reference error, which is good. So now if the palette circle equals the game state selected color, which it should from the pointer up function, once that palette circle is clicked, then the palette circle stroke color will be gold. right? So it should do that, else it is not. Pointer, what's the other one? So there's pointer up, pointer out, pointer over. What's the last one? Pointer, it's not, is it pointer down? Is it like pointer down where you hold it down? Let's see if that changes it, or we have to hold. Hold? This dot palette circle dot stroke color. Oh, wait. I had to be, that's really strange. Okay, first of all, let's change that back to pointer up. Pointer up if it clicks. So it's set in 2 places where it should turn gold, but it's not doing that. Let's delete this. Let's reset. That's so strange. So game state dot selected color equals this color, and this dot palette circle dot stroke color. Is it because this is here? Whoops, go back. Go back. Scroll down. Okay. Yes, okay, cool. I was getting confused with all the thises. The thises. Okay, so far, that's super simple. We click on it, it turns gold. But we need to say, we need to have an if conditional. Bring our if conditional back, right? We can have this just outside, just within the loop itself. And then, yeah. So then we say that, whatever, that can be there. Eliminate this, have this be palette circle. If it equals that, then it equals gold, else then it equals black. We need to then get rid of this in both places. Okay. No, it's still not doing it. Okay, the check is not working. The conditional is not checking it. Can we put that in the pointer up? If palette circle dot color. Okay, so that's the issue. So palette circle dot color is accessing like all of the values of the entire array. So we need to narrow this down. We narrow it down by giving it context like here where it says color. I can sort of see why they skipped this step, why they just had you do the other thing. It takes a little bit to figure out, but we're getting closer. So as we click, it turns gold. When all we need to say is if it does not equal the selected color, if the palette circle does not equal the selected color, then it turns black. We don't need anything else because as we click it, then it will be that. So let's get rid of our else statement there and just put in like a not. Right? Okay. So now if we click one, oh yeah, so then it's turning gold. This needs to be 0x0000000. 0. I think that was the right amount of zeros. 0, like that. Okay. Now if we click it, yes. Okay. So now, it still doesn't work. Can we do that in here? Let's delete this. No, that interrupts the, yeah. So where do we put this? Our logic is good. It's just we don't know where to put the condition, or the conditional. Let's reset that. Reset that, please. Hello? Reset. Thank you. Again, this is accessing all of the properties at once. We need it to not access that. This dot color. Okay, so instead, if this dot color is not equal to, then this dot stroke color is that, right? I hope so. I hope so. Editor, this is back in to use the context of color. Let's see. Nope, not yet. Not yet indeed. Huh. Pointer up, it turns gold. If this color is not equal to the game state.selected color, then the stroke color becomes, or then particle circle. Yeah, not this, but palette circle dot stroke color. Does that work? No. Okay. Let's move that to be, the order probably doesn't matter, but we'll see if it does, if it needs to be above this before it sets it as the color itself. No, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's probably doing it. It's just like, it's running the whole code all at once. This color... How do you set it back to black? How do you set it back? How do you set that specific palette circle to have the stroke of black? Okay, we'll come back to this. Let's just keep it as this for now, right? So just like, whenever you select your colors, it's gonna turn gold and then it's never gonna turn back, right? This color. Okay, let's do the other part first. Let's add a highlight. So, palette circle dot on. Whoops, I did not do that correctly. I added in another dot. Do that. Palette circle dot on. This is going to be pointer over. Pointer over. And then you can put in a function. This is then going to be when you hover over it, it's going to be white. So palette circle dot stroke color, yeah, just palette circle dot stroke color. Oops, color equals a white, which I don't know. I think it's like all Fs. Something like that. Let's try that. No. It also breaks everything. Okay. Why does it break everything? Palette circle dot on pointer over function palette circle. Oh, so that's not spelled correctly. That needs a second T and only one L, 2 T's, stroke color. Yeah, there we go. And so now, if we hover over it, then we'll need a pointer out. We'll need a pointer out function, or pointer out handler for this. So pointer out, this is going to go back to black if, and this is where our if conditional comes in. yeah, if it's equal to, yeah, so like this is going to be the part of, so on the pointer out function, we're going to say if this color is equal to the selected color, then the stroke color then becomes gold on the out. If it is not, then it becomes black. I think you don't necessarily need context for this. You can just put in palette circle stroke color for both of these, and then palette circle color, I think. Not quite. Okay. What are we missing? Oh, I also need. Wait. Where's this going? Oh no, I need another. That's going there. That's going here. But then we don't have one of these here. We need another brace. There we go. What? Why did that not work? Okay, that was strange behavior. Let's try that again. All right, so when we hover over it, it turns white. Right? When we hover over, it turns white. It should turn white. Okay, something. It works once and then never works again. Oh, what is that? Okay, that's better. So now if we hover over it, and if we move our pointer away, when it's not the selected color, it will turn. So the hover works, and then since it's not the selected color, it will turn back to black. That's great. That's great so far. Now when we click on one, it turns gold, so that means that the pointer up handler is working. It turns gold. When we move our pointer away from it, it should see that the particle circle color is equal to the selected color, and then keep it gold. But it doesn't know that. So maybe we need to give it context down here of color. Then we could probably put in this dot color. See if that works. Yeah, okay. But then we have the same issue as before, right? It's staying gold, but now we are one step closer. Let's try that again. All right, so wait, what? Is that just a fluke or what's going on? Try that again. Run the code, please. Run it. Thank you. Okay. Let's try not purple. Let's try something else. Yeah. So apparently purple is selected by default. Yeah, purple is selected by default, but I'm not really sure why. It's just like the second one. It's kind of random, but yeah. So you hover over one, and when it is not the selected color, it will go back to black, the stroke of black. If you do select it, then it will turn gold. And then the highlight will still work on the other ones. And everything's turning back to black there. If you select a different one, it will turn gold. However, yeah, the only way to clear the other colors is to roll over it. And we don't want that. We want it to be like, as soon as you click it, the other thing disappears. So how do we do that? We got our pointer out, we've got our pointer over, we've got our pointer up, right? All the pieces are here. All the pieces are here. And it's not a pointer over, because we have that solved. We have the highlight solved. It's not a pointer out, because once we click it and leave it, that becomes the selected color. And then it also works if we leave it and it's not the selected color. So, one more step to go. It's got to be on the pointer up, right? It's got to be a part of this function. Can we say... No, I can't say that. because it's selecting a palette circle with this. So outside of this, we basically need to reset it and say that if any palette circle, right? If palette circle.color does not equal GameState.selectedColor, kind of rotating back into what we had before that didn't work. Stroke color. You know what? Let's try this. Let's try the stroke color instead. So just do an if after the handler, if, and then have palette circle stroke color equals black, or I guess is equal to GameState.selectedColor, but that's not going to be true. The stroke color doesn't equal the selected color. We want to say if the palette circle color equals that. So this property, just the color property here, right? Again, this is just rotating back to what we have, but maybe with our extra bit of code we put for the handlers, this will be better. So if it equals that, right? Basically, don't do anything. We want to say that if it does not equal that. But if it equals that, yeah, if it equals that, don't do anything. If it doesn't equal this, right, we don't even need to put it else. We can just put the not. Else, change it to palette circle, change the stroke color, stroke color, to be black. Okay, let's see what that does. Yeah, doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. So this is undefined. How do we make this defined? Palette circle is this. GameState.palette equals I. Okay. What if we take the palette, which are the colors up here, and we say we do a for each. If GameState.palette.I, yeah. So grab this one. So if this, do a for each, right? So GameState.palette.I dot for each get rid of this. GameState.palette.I, so each index, for each index, or I guess you don't even need to do that, as you just need the whole array, right? So GameState.palette.for each to iterate through an array. Then put in hold on, I need to look up what the documentation is for the for each MDN. I think this is expressions and operators. Is there for each, or no, it's a method, right? It's a method on an object. Dot for each. Oh, it's an array prototype. Okay, so you have an array for each element, right? And you do a function. You do an arrow syntax with each element. You can also, yeah. Okay, so for each we need to call it something. So let's call it. I guess that doesn't need to be a string. It's just that. Okay, so element. We'll do that element. This can be named whatever. This is setting up the parameter for that function. For each element, does it need a comma? Does it need a comma? No, it just is straight into the function, yeah. So that's the parameter. If you had multiple, you would need a set of parentheses, but we don't have that here. So equals, do the arrow, and then for each of those, we're going to have our if statement that we keep trying to make work. We'll rewrite it here. So if, I guess if it equals GameState.palette for each, so if GameState.palette or no, just GameState.palette and then index of what? This is just going to be element, right? So no, element, that helps us, that saves us from writing all that. If element is equal to GameState dot selected color. Okay. Then we change that's the thing. How do you change the? I don't know that that's going to work if it's just like you're selecting the palette circles. Palette circle stroke color. If that equals to that, or really we can just do this in one step. Yeah, it just breaks it. Do I have to call the game state? No. Nope. Oh, 4 equal signs. Let's try that. No. Okay, what happens in here if I just delete this part? What happens if I delete this part? Oh my goodness. Okay, so just didn't like that we were doing the. Okay. Palette circles is dot circle. Yeah, I think if I knew what this is here, it would be so much simpler. Because if that is populating, I mean, it must be populating the palette circles with that. Oh, maybe that was, hold on. Hold the phone. This cannot be palette. It needs to be palette circles, right? Or no, it can be palette. So if the palette does not equal the selected color for each element, if the element does not equal the GameState.selected color, then make the stroke color of the palette circle this. GameState.palette for each. If GameState.palette for each. Is it just this? No. Just because this runs infinitely, there's no like stopping condition. Do we need return? Hold on. Let me see what that is for. Array1 for each element. So the array that we're using is then, yeah, it's the GameState.palette array. GameState.palette, that's the array we're using. So why doesn't it like that? Maybe because it's within the loop. Maybe if we just exit the loop. But then the circles aren't created, you know what I mean? So it's not gonna, yeah. It has to create the circles first before we can do that. Ba-ba-da-ba-boom. Is there any way we can do this within something that we already have? Palette circle dot on function palette circle stroke color. Palette circle dot on pointer up. I plus plus. I is then put into the palette color. Oh, wait a second. What if we did it with color instead? So let's go back. Because color is then an array, right? Or it's the index of an array. So that doesn't help. That's just the index. Oh, wait a second. So just if color equals selected color, right? If color does not equal selected color, get rid of the return. Doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? What is off here? Oh, I have two of these, first of all. I have two parentheses. There we go. Was that the problem before, too? Okay. Well, anyway, that's back to what we had. Now we can clear it by brushing the mouse over it, but we don't want that. If color, which is the variable set here, if color does not equal GameState.selectedColor, which should be globally available because it was called in here in this function, then palette circle.strokeColor equals black. But the thing is that we can't reference where that is. What happens if we change this to white? Okay, so it starts out like that. That's really weird. That's really weird. Then what happens if we click this one? Okay. Can we make this a while loop instead? Will that work? What? Oh, that's probably not the right content, the syntax for it. Let's go back to, yeah, get rid of that. Run it again. Oh my goodness. What? What's happened? It was literally the same code we had. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to keep this to white because that was showing us that it was activating at the beginning. So it does see that if color does not equal GameState.selectedColor, it will turn the stroke color white. All of that is referencing properly. But we need an else statement, I guess, right? Well, else, yeah, this is the selected one, right? So the selected one then becomes purple. So if the color is not the game state selected color, then the stroke color will equal black, or will equal white. So where does this need to go then? Because that is working. It's changing the color at the onset of it. So this is within the loop. We don't want this within the loop, but we do want it within the loop because of the color variable. So how do we do another loop within that? So like for each element. So I guess we could do another for loop, a nested for loop in there. Just do like this. But this for loop is only populating. It's not updating. We need to set this in the update section. I don't think they have an update section. It's just like create one, I guess. And to run this every time. So this needs to go into the update body. Let's go back into that. Let's delete all this. And delete this empty space. And then let's just add in function update. Yeah, and okay. Just this. Let's see if that works. Let's see if that works. And we broke it again. Wonderful. Okay, so let's look at the create, see how that's set up. Function create, yeah. Function update. Oh yeah, because color is not defined. So we need to define color again. So just let color equal game state dot palette and the index of. I don't know if that. Oh man, because you got to iterate through that again. So we do need a loop. We do need another loop. Okay. I'm very curious how they did it because they showed the finished product later on. And then why is that still broken? Palette. Because palette circle is only has function scope. Do we need a this dot palette circle? We need a game state dot palette circle. No. Don't know. Okay. Let's yeah. Let's back up. Okay. And just put it back up there. Okay. Backing up to there. This needs to happen every frame, essentially. We can, this is redundant at this point. We don't need this. Okay. So, color is set to the index of I in the palette. So this for loop runs, it populates the palette circles, and then what? It does keep running though, because we see that when we click it, create each of the palette circles with one of the colors from the palette. Okay. Do palette circle here. Oh. No, because that was contained within. Yeah, that was contained within it. That's weird. I'm like, shouldn't all of the handlers be outside of the for loop? But that's where they told us to put it. So I don't know. Let's see. Because palette circle is set to interactive. There. How are we doing it in the other one? So palette circle game state dot selected color equals this color. then the stroke color becomes gold. If the color equals the game state dot selected color, then make it white. If it's not the selected color, then make it white. So just like just put this in here. No, that doesn't work. Because the color is always going to equal that. It's like a chicken and the egg thing. Okay, we'll get it though. We'll get it. Might take another hour, but we'll get it. Palette circle on. Pointer over function. Pointer over function is still working. That's interesting. So that's working, and then it's overriding the if. It's overriding the if. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna create another for loop then. I'm just gonna copy this down below. It's my last attempt. Okay, do that, bring this down, and then copy this over. Copy this down to here, add the conditional down there, and see. So then it will iterate through. We need to have a variable here, let color equal game state dot palette with the index of I, and then for every color, if it does not equal the selected color, come on, why? What did I miss? What did I miss? Just need a semicolon. What did I miss? The palette circle. Okay, so everything's fine except for the palette circle. The palette circle dot stroke color. So we need game state. No. This. No. What happens if we just delete this whole line of code? Then it works. Ugh. Well, that's good in the sense that now we have another for loop that's looking at the colors. Looking at the colors and then comparing it to the selected color. The current selected color is purple. That's the default one. So we roll over, we see the highlights, we select one, it turns gold, but then we have to clear it in the same way. Well, that was interesting. Oh, okay, I just didn't know that I was moving over it. So how do we reference that? So where is this stored? Where is the stroke color stored after it goes through the for loop? Okay, where is that stored? Stroke color equals black. Is it stored within palette circles? So we need GameState.PaletteCircles.PaletteCircle. Yeah, I think that's what we need. Or just like this, and then index of I, maybe, dot stroke color equals 0x0000. Try that. Grr. Okay, palette circles dot palette circle. Dot stroke color. I don't know. I don't understand. Palette circles, da, 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 da. Make a song out of it. If we leave our conditional blank, it works just fine. See? Look at that. No reference errors whatsoever. How do we access Not that. We're not trying to access this. We're trying to access the invisible stroke color property of the palette circles, which is only defined in this for loop. But it must exist outside of that because we were able to access, I mean, we can see it. Like, what does this turn into? The palette circle dot stroke color. This dot add circle. So it's creating palette circle array. So because if we delete this, if we delete that one, everything works just fine. What is that one for? What is that? Just delete the array and it's still okay. What was this for? GameState.PaletteCircle is equals an empty array. Okay. Where is this being stored? Where are all the palette circles going? This is the whole Pegasus, right? If we delete all this, it's just the Pegasus. It's not the circles. So if we delete this, we won't have a Pegasus anymore. Yeah. Okay. So that's the Pegasus. This is, put a comment up here. Like, this is Pegasus, right? Pegasus. Initiation. That's the Pegasus. Okay. This is all the palette circles here. Sets up the palette box. If we delete this, then we do not have the background of that, and there's no, like, yeah, there's nothing. The weird thing is that if we delete this array of palette circles, it's fine. It's totally fine because we are creating them independently in the for loop. Yeah. It's so strange. Just delete that array. You don't need it. Spacing of 2, yeah, so that's the spacing of it. You can change this to be, like, have it be spacing divided by 1.5 and have them be closer or shifted. I guess that's just the, yeah, it's based off of this property here, this number 220, and like half the distance between them. Yeah, they squish together. So we know what that does. Okay. GameState.palette.length. Divided by that, the spacing equals this, and then that spacing is set down here. So the translation is the spacing divided by 2. So it's 220 on either side of it, right? Times wherever, so that's populating in a certain place. Create each of the palette circles with one of the colors from the palette. So the color is whatever I is. There. So, oh, wait a second. The color is whatever I is. Yeah, we tried that before. If color, we tried that before, and then we tried color, if color equals the GameState.selected color, then it would turn the stroke color a certain way, but that just happens at the beginning, and then it doesn't happen again. It doesn't happen on click. Unless we do like a nested for loop inside of the click. I don't know. This is working so far. So for this, let the color equal what's in the palette. If color does not equal the selected color, then we need to change the stroke of each of them. But I think that's trying to do it from outside in. Yeah, it's putting the chicken before the egg, right? Or the egg before the chicken, whichever. Because there's no way to access the palette circles because they have they're only scoped in the for loop. I guess, even though we can totally interact with them and see them outside of it, Not sure how that works, where it's going, or anything. And the palette circle, what we want to say is then the palette circle with that color, then its stroke color turns black. Palette circle equals black. Pointer out. What happens if we just get rid of this else statement? Wait a second. What happens if we just get rid of this? And then you get rid of this? And then change this to be a negative? Come on. Pointer out. What did I miss? Okay. No, that needs, I need another one. I need another one. Let's see, I don't need another one there. I need another one here, here. Another brace. Let's do that again and not delete things that we need. All right, let's try this. Undo that. Redo that. Okay. All is right with the world. What happens if we delete this else? Else. Or if we delete, yeah. So just delete. Okay, so these two braces I am deleting. That will get rid of the else. The palette circle is then going to be exchanged with this one. There we go. It's a syntax issue. Okay. Got our braces in the correct order. Oh, sorry. This needs to be a not. There we go. Once again, it works, but it's like, it's only after you hover over it, right? It's if you hover over and then go out. I want it to be on click. On click, that changes. On click, that one changes. That one changes back. So pointer up. So pointer up. All right, one last attempt, and then we're gonna just look at what they had, how they programmed it. Okay, so palette circle. I'm going to flip this. I'm going to take this out of, because none of these handlers need to be inside of the for loop, and I think that's our issue. Because what it's doing is saying that the only way that we're able to program, like, so if I click one and then the other one to disappear without me hovering over it, let's use like a pointer down. Can we use a pointer? No, we can't use a pointer down. Well, that was weird. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, because there's no else condition for this. Let's return that back to what it was. It was fine like this. I don't know, man. The only way to do it is like pointer up, have it in here as accessing the other palette circles, but there's no way to do that because they're not within the for loop. They are now in the palette circles. I guess we just need another loop inside of here. So on pointer up, for, yeah, we need a for loop inside of here. So for, let's get rid of this one, or not get rid of it, but actually copy it. copy this one into here for the pointer up. We're doing a nested for loop. We're going to say that let color equal GameState.palette. If the color does not equal to the selected color, but when we go, even if we do that, when we go to access the palette circle, it's only going to be the one that we already selected. We don't want that. So instead, this needs to be palette circles, the palette circles array. That's why that's important. This actually comes in handy here if that's actually being populated, which we have not verified yet. But so let color equal GameState.palette circles with the index of this for loop. I mean, in fact, you could just say with the index of the palette circles so that doesn't break. I mean, it should be fine, but anyway, so then if color, which is now it needs to be the color like the color property within that. Man, this is convoluted. Okay, so let the color equal that. The color property within the palette circles array, which is the index of I from the for loop. And then, never knew a coloring book could be so complicated. So then, color, if that is not equal to GameState.selected color, the color that we've set there would then be, but this still checks out because we have a palette circle with a color. That should be a property of each index of the palette circles array, which is then a palette circle itself. So that should work. So if it is not equal to that, then let the palette, or let this, whatever this is, right? Whatever that is, equal 0x000. Hey, it's still up. Wait, does this actually work? No, it does not work. But I did not break it though. I did not have a reference error. All right. For let I equal 0, let color equal this. Oh, because this needs to be stroke color. Hold on, if this works, I might be getting my hopes up, but if this works, man, it does not work. Come on, we're so close. I feel like we're so close. Because we're accessing each palette circle stroke color and then changing it to black. If the color does not equal the game state selected color. Well, what happens if we change this to all white, right? We were doing that before. See if that happens at the beginning of the, no, it doesn't happen at the beginning of the game. But this is only happening on click, right? So when it's on click, if it does not equal that, that's the problem. Like when it's on click, it's automatically equal that. Ugh. Okay. Oh, I see what I'm doing. It's circular because color is assigned to this property. Then it's saying if color is not equal to this other property, which is apparently the same, I don't know. All right, say it is equal to that. It is equal to that, turn it white. Well, that's kind of working. That was weird. I don't know. I mean, to make it faster, we could put the same if condition in that's in pointer out and pointer over, so when you just roll over it, it'll all turn black, but still not doing what we want it to. Though we went into all this trouble to make this extra for loop. Palette circles of I. So this is accessing a color property of the palette circle itself. If that color property of that specific palette circle equals the game state.selected color, we are turning the stroke color of that palette circle white. That is the theory. That's the logic going into that. Game state.selected color equals this dot color. Oh. Yeah, see, that's the issue, right? Because it already equals that color equals this color. So this dot color is then this. So we're saying that if the color of whatever the palette circle is equal to this color, the color of the current palette circle, so let's just rewrite this to say, yeah, this is the color of the current palette circle. Which we don't want. We really don't want that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. It is not working. Let's get rid of this. Oh, come on. I don't have a parenthesis where I need it. Or, oh, I see. Wait, no, yes I do. I have that in the proper place. Let's delete this. Because that's, oh, I have 2 instead of 1? Yeah, I don't need that. There we go. Alright, yeah, hold on. Go back a second and delete this. Okay. Alright, let's take a look at, I have been beaten by the Pegasus, I suppose. Sent to the Shadow Realm. Alright, we're going to the review. Okay. How did they do this? How did they do this? Yeah, see, they have a pointer down. They have a pointer down function. When you click off of it, and that's it. That's all that we needed. I was thinking for some reason that pointer down meant you hold it, but it's not like that. It's basically allowing for click and drag. If you're clicking and dragging off, like, oh, I didn't mean to select that, you drag away. Although they don't really have that built in here. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back. So back to ours. So the pointer, if I just had remembered that, it would have been fine. So palette circle dot on, palette circle dot on. We are going to put in a pointer down. Pointer down. This is going to be a function. And then this is just going to be the same as we had if when you let go of the mouse. Wait, what? How does that make sense? So if you let go of it, when you let go of it, it's already equal to this. I actually don't know how that would help us. This is just saying if you let go, right? Or if you hold it. Hold, let go. No, ours works, yeah. I don't know why they put that in, because ours works where if you're like, well, I don't know that I want to select blue, and you try to select purple, then it'll work. Like it'll select purple instead and select blue instead. Our problem is that we can't get it to unselect the things that it's not currently selecting. So let's move on and let's see how they did that, because that pointer down doesn't actually help us. Okay, so this dot fill color equals game state. Okay, that's the shapes. That's the shapes. Set interactive palette circle on. So pointer down. Game state dot select color equals this color. This can literally be deleted. It does not matter. Yeah. Unless they did it where, oh, they did a pointer down instead of a pointer up, which is fine. We could change this to pointer up to have it be exactly as we had it. Whoa. Wait, what? How did they... Okay, so now it's switching between those two, but yeah, see, I don't like that as much because when you click it, it doesn't change to gold. It doesn't change to gold. It's only when you move away does it actually change. I would rather have it, you see it change to gold, and then when you move it away, then the other one, well, actually when you click it, then the other one immediately disappears. So they didn't even do that. They didn't even program that in. They have it when you do the pointer out, then it switches, which I knew how to do, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't know how to, but I don't know how to do it where you click it and then it immediately pops over to that one. Don't know. I think my theories, you know, have leading me to dead ends, but I believe that if this for loop was eliminated, or not eliminated, but it populated the palette circles, and then you just put in all of your handlers on the outside of the loop, without having to access like the internal array of palette circles, just have it access, do a for each method, have it access everything, and then do your handlers. That way, when you do the pointer up, you can actually reference each circle without having to reference a circle one at a time. And that's the problem with a loop, is that it runs the code, but it only does it one at a time. It doesn't do it for everything all at once. And we need to check. We basically need an update function to check to see, check on every circle. We weren't able to do that because of how it's built in here. I don't know how I would rework it, but I think that would need to change. But let's look at what they have. So they have pointer out. They have, let's see, game state dot selected color equals this dot color for let circle of game state dot palette circles equals circle of stroke of dot stroke color. Yeah, so they did do. They did a for. Like a for in loop, but it was for of. So circle dot stroke color equals black if it equals this color. This palette circle stroke color equals this. On pointer out. So could we change that? If it equals this color, then game state dot palette circles. Whoa, so that's it then. So we were onto something. We were onto something with palette circles, right? Looked at that and said, okay, this is where they're all being stored. Then we were trying to access the stroke color of those properties, which was, it was working, but it was being overwritten by the other things we had. So let's grab this. Let's grab that and go back. And we're going to try to put this in our pointer up. Yeah. Okay. Let's try it. Let's try it. Ay, ay, ay. Still nothing. You know what? Let's do a pointer down. Or yeah, but palette circle dot on pointer down function, spell function correctly, function with the I over there. Okay. Then add the for loop here. Let's see what that does now. Everything's gonna remain. Come on, why does it stay that way? It should. So when the pointer is down, which means you let go of the mouse, it should say, okay, so let circle of palette circles and the circle of the stroke color. The circle stroke color equals black. In again, it's only creating them one at a time. I think that's the issue. It's only creating them one at a time. So it's only looking at the one. Mm-hmm. The circle of game state dot palette circle dot stroke color equals that. Yeah, I don't know. Not even the people that made it were doing that, so I don't know how to accomplish it. Pointer down. Yeah, because it's just creating one circle at a time and focusing on one circle at a time. Therefore, it can't see the other circles. The other circles are being stored in the palette circles, but yet when we try to access the stroke color, it doesn't work. If we change that to, what does it do if we change it to nothing? It does nothing. It's a useless loop. Don't know. So the palette circles has an array. For every circle, we want to change the stroke color to that. So maybe down here. What? It should run. It should run just like that. Let the circle of game state.palette circles. So it's making the circle as a proxy to whatever's inside of the array of palette circles. It's having that color equals 0. The problem is that loop runs completely before we begin checking it. So it's a weird thing. It's like you're setting up a listener, but you're putting it inside of a for loop. So it works as a listener as if it was outside of the loop, but yet it can only access one thing at a time. Very, very confusing. Okay, so let's do another layer of complexity. If for each of those, let's circle in move that aside. Just gonna play around with it here. Circle of. I don't know what the difference between of or in is in this. Circle of. So again, we can remove it by brushing our mouse over it. Could we use? Hold on. Hold on. Could we use an update function here? Nope. Well, it will remain a mystery then. I'm not sure how to... Let's see, I mean, the hint will just tell us the same thing, right? Yeah, palette circle dot stroke color. What do we do an if? Write if statement down here, or if conditional. If circle. If circle dot color equals the game state dot selected color. Oh, that's not an is equals. There we go. It's as if it doesn't exist, as if it were not writing anything. I don't understand. The update should say, like, okay, so for each of these, maybe this needs to be an of instead of an in. Nope. Okay. And it's not fill color, right? It's literally just color. They just put it as color, but that's not... Again, like if we just delete the palette circles, it's gotta throw a reference error, right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it still works the same because that doesn't actually exist, right? Like it's so funny. Like the for loop, there's something missing here because the for loop should populate this array, but when we just delete the array, it doesn't matter. It still runs the same because it's not doing it based off the array. It's saying off of that array. It's just adding circles and then not storing them anywhere. Because of this, right? So let's say instead game state dot palette circles dot add, and then it's a blank screen. And if we do game state dot add, oh, we gotta get rid of that one. It's still a blank screen. So I have no idea. It comes back to this, literally, the word this. No idea what that is doing. What this is doing, because it's not adding it into the array. If we get rid of that array, then it's fine. So where are these being stored? They're not being stored in palette because those are the colors. The selected color is here. It must be adding like another property, but I don't understand. This is all the Pegasus. This is the Pegasus shapes, or the how to populate them. Palette box set origin. Okay, that's just the top of that thing. Setting up palette circles. Palette box is just here, right? And we can change the color of that. That should change the background of the box, like so. Yeah. If we delete this, oh yeah, we got to delete this as well. There we go. Yeah, we'll just delete the palette box. That doesn't do anything for us. Spacing, translation. We know what those do. Change that back to blue or whatever we had it. Okay. Game state dot palette circles equals an empty array. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, I think that's it. It's just like there's no way to access them after they're created. There's just not. There's no way to do it. I don't know where they go. There's nothing named. GameState.palette circles is potentially where they would go, but they don't. Like if we go to the next one, if we go to the review page, and then try the same thing, because this time it is actually referencing with the for loop. This one. So let the circle of GameState.palette circles equal this, right? So potentially it should break when we get rid of that. Yeah, good. That's good. But that doesn't happen in the previous step when we're copying the code. I mean, almost. We're placing it in different sections, but we're pretty much copying the code just like this. So the update function doesn't ever run, I guess. Like if we move the for loop, if we move it to be within here, and then we say that, okay, so this is no longer the valid circles array no longer exists, then it breaks because it's within the create, right? So that goes to show that the update function in this case is not doing literally anything. I don't know why. It's just it's literally not doing anything. So okay, so let's get rid of that. And let's instead use it in the create one for here. Okay. So now it's back to this. When we click it, it still all turns to gold. We have the Midas touch. You call this game the Midas touch. Everything turns to gold, and it doesn't turn back unless you wave your hand over it. Honestly, I'm tempted to just change the highlight to gold, because we don't need a separate highlight for it. Well, we do if we're going to... Hold on. That's an idea. Let's change the highlight. So pointer over is not going to be this. It's going to be the gold color. Okay. let's change that to be the gold color. Copy this, put this back into the pointer over. That's going to be the gold color. Let's then run this again. And now when we roll over it, we will see that it's gold. We click on it, it turns gold. Pointer out if this game state is the selected color, and you keep it gold. If it's not, then you turn it black, right? So that still works. Still essentially the same, we just got rid of a color. Let's get rid of what this is turning it into. Right. Okay, so let's be sneaky about this. Let's turn this back to black. But why? Okay. Yeah, we don't want that. Don't want that. Yeah. Wait a second, where is this? Okay, good. I was like, where does that go? Where does that brace go? There we go. Okay, so there's a brace there, there's a brace there. All right. It's all happy and good. Where's that one going? It's in the for loop up there. What happens if we say, well, what if we do this? Stroke color. Also, I want to see where this is. So it's 7 times, right? 7 times over. So potentially, the circle here is now the palette circle. No. You know what I forgot? You know what I forgot? Okay. So in the scene, in the config file, or the config object, we need to put in an update, right? Or else it's not going to use it. That's why it wasn't doing anything, because it wasn't in the scene. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's try update. I hope this works. Now, if it does, man, that's going to be a relief. Let's spell function correctly. Update. And make sure that nothing breaks while we do that. Okay, cool. Nothing broke. Now let's put this in to here. Wonderful. Let's see if it works. Nope, does not work. Oh, right, because this is not, wait, what? No, it should still work. Color. If game state, circle of game state dot palette circles, if circle dot color does not equal that, then it should equal to black, right? Can we say in instead? Okay. I mean, that should work, and it's kind of shorthand with what we were doing before. But to be exhaustive, let's do it before. Let's do what we were doing before. So I equals 0. Equals 0. And it's basically just copying what they had up here for this one. Doesn't matter what the variable is named. You can make it J if you want, just so that it's different. J plus plus, and then if like if color equals, so, and then have a variable in here, so let color equal game state dot palette circles dot palette circle dot color. Okay. Or just whatever the, yeah, whatever the index of J is, right, for color. Then we can say if color by itself, because now it's a variable, if color does not equal the selected color, then the that's the thing, you need a for in something. You need another variable to establish where you're, like, what stroke color you're changing. But I guess you could just change the game state dot palette circles dot, or index of J with the stroke color. Congratulations, you broke it again. Game state dot palette circles J of color. We did this before and it seemed to work. Game state dot selected color, game state palette circles J dot stroke color equals that. Oh yeah, well we could just say color, right? Color. It's a scoping issue, isn't it? Yeah. What? What the heck? Go back. For let J equals 0. J is less than the game state palette dot length. J plus plus. I don't know, man. Okay, so it just didn't like that we were trying to index it with the J. So let's get rid of that, I guess. What? I don't know. I don't know. If it sets to... Why doesn't it not work though? J.color. Oh, is it still gone? Is that array still gone? Also, if the array wasn't populating in the first place when we did it before, it would just be 0, right? Or undefined. So it was working because it wasn't... No, it's there. It's there. Namestate.palette circles. This is twice. We have it down here as we're calling it. Oh, I spelled something wrong. Palette circles. Palette circles. Circles. Okay, well, I don't see what's wrong, so we're just going to copy this. Oh, gamestate.palette circles, yeah. Okay, so let's copy this up to here. Boop. What's the difference? Palette, P-A-L-E-T-T-E. Game state. I don't know. Okay. 3 different places. Okay. J. I don't know. Maybe I. Changes to I. Like that matters at all. Got a white screen instead of a black screen. Okay, let's get rid of that and do this and eliminate that. Just this, undo. Just this. Okay, that's fine. If we get rid of this, that's not fine. So there's no .color property of the palette circles. There is an array of them, but they don't have the color property. Okay. Do they have a stroke color property? Nope. They have no properties. It's just populating the circles in there. Okay. Again, like, where are these properties going? Where are they being stored? It's definitely not here. Wait a second. The index of the palette circle should be the same as the index of the palette, right? So we should be able to say that the color is the index of the palette. And then say that if the color does not equal game state dot selected color. Oops. Selected color. Then the palette, yeah. So then game state dot palette circles with the index of I, but it doesn't have a stroke color property. And we can't access it like this either, right? Circle dot stroke color. Like game state. Yeah, because that's not palette circles. So that's the last line. That's the last line. Where is it? Where is it stored? Like it's not even a. We've done this 5 different ways from 5 different ways from Sunday, as they say. But we don't know where that's stored. Like what array is it being put into? Let palette circle equal this add circle. Where does this go? Where does this go? Game state dot add dot circle. Add into what though? Oh, add the palette circle? Circle? So within those, does palette circle have its own array? Let me see. Let me see if palette circle is an array of itself. In and of itself. So brackets of I. Or not that, just this. And then of I stroke color. Okay. Wait a second. No, still does not work. Okay, so I'm going to try to push the palette circle. So palette circle dot push, or no, not palette circle dot push. We want palette circles dot push for the current. How do you do that? The current palette circle. Ay ay ay. Oh, just call it that. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see if we can populate this array. Push. And the variable circle. No. But now does this work where we then have a property of this that is stroke color? Dude. Oh. Oh. It takes it a second, but it's doing it. Look at this. Sweet. So now, okay. This is working. Okay, so there was something missing. they never populated the array that stores the palette circles. So they were just floating off somewhere. You could never access them after they were created. We needed to store them in an array, except through the for loop, which is a weird thing where it was like, it was a first order function, and you were able to set the interactivity within the loop and then still interact with it after the loop was finished. So it was almost like the loop went through all of its stages and then would go through its stages again, and it's like it's painting on more and more circles each time you do something within the loop. Very strange. But anyway, we noticed that this palette circles array didn't do anything. We could delete it and then everything would run the same. So it wasn't being populated. It wasn't being referenced. We decided to reference it and decided to populate it with the push command, the push method of the palette circle. So now that array is full of all of the palette circles. We can access each of the properties within those. And so in the update function, we can now set the stroke color to black. Once we click on something, it will then set the other one to black. We can then set this back. The only other thing we have to do now is to set the palette circle stroke color to gold once we click it. So now set it to gold, and then when we click the other one, it switches. Look at that. It switches. It switches. Cool. That was a struggle. That was a long time to figure that out. But hey, just kept at it. Kept at it. There you go. That's how you switch colors in the game. And now if you want to bring your highlight back, if you want to be fancy about it, right? I mean, the highlight, yeah, the pointer over thing is not quite working. Yeah, I wonder why the pointer over... Is this, I guess the for loop down here is overriding the pointer over. Like if it's not... So the highlight doesn't work now because this is overriding the highlight. So let's try putting this. Let's try putting this into the create function with the pointer up. Because now everything is referenced, so that should still work. The highlight's working now. When we click the one, it highlights. And when we click the other, it switches. Yes. So now our methodology in the beginning was fine. It was just that the array was not populating, or was not populated in the first place. So it was there was nowhere, they weren't being stored anywhere. They existed, we could click on them, but they weren't being stored anywhere and you couldn't access them. Besides interactively, which was weird, but okay. So now we have that. The array is set up to where it can check the array and see every time we click one color, it'll check the array and see if, go through each of the palette circles, see if it's the right color, the color that we chose, and change the highlight if it was not. So now the last thing to do is to just change this to all white for the pointer over, and then we can have our fancy dancy Pegasus coloring book all set to go, like so. Well, that's a relief. Finally worked around that. Okay, let's go to the review. Let's see what and this has more functionality than what they show us at the end, because, or at least it's smoother, because you look at the highlights, you can see the highlights. When you click on one, it immediately switches. The one that they have does not do that. Congratulations, you made your first game, Color a Pegasus. I should put a little tag at the beginning of this when I post it to YouTube, like, or just cut it way down, because that was like 2 hours of trying to figure that out. Of just like, trust me, it'll be complete at the end. All right, so own and update the state of the game. This is what they're going over. The course of this lesson, you've created this sequence of event handlers to own and update the state of the game, update the color of specific parts of the Pegasus in the game, and highlight game objects to indicate what will be clicked on. Yes. You've displayed a lot of control over the possible mouse cursor events and successfully used that control to build a coloring game. Good job. Good job. If you want to build on this game, you can think about a new color to add to the palette. Color in the background as well as the Pegasus. Put the palette on top or down or the side of the game. Color in different shapes that you supply. You can use sprites or images instead of curves built into Phaser. And music, or add music. Add anything else you come up with it to improve the game. Well, for the first 4 things, we can go over where those are. And then we'll be wrapping up here. But first, if you want to add another color, you simply add it in here. If you want to add like just a simple white, right? Do 0x into the top array with the game state.palettes. Do FFF, FFF. Have it loaded up, and there you go. You got a 7th color, and you can now color the Pegasus in white. You could also do like an 8th color if you wanted, but 7 seems like a good number for that spacing. If you wanted to change the spacing of it itself, you can change it down here to where like the spacing is 300 instead. But at some point you're going to get to where the circles are touching each other, and you probably wouldn't want that unless you had a whole bunch of colors. You could also change the size of the circles themselves by changing this radius, I believe. So if you wanted to change it to be like 11 instead, then those would be smaller. You could shift them up a little bit to where the palettes or where you could have another row of colors. I'm not sure. I think the other number, so let's set the radius back to 22. I think the other number might be where it is on the y-axis, so you could change this to like 400. It might be, yeah, it'll float them up. So that's the y-axis, and then the second one is the radius. So and then this, all of this is determining the x value based off of the spacing and translation, which is just saying like translation is the spacing divided by 2, which the spacing is 440 divided by the palette length. So if you have the palette length of 1, then you have 440 as the x value. You then add that to 220, or sorry, no, yeah, you add that, so the translation plus spacing, you add that to 220, so you'd have 660 times I, which would just be 1 at the beginning, or I guess 0 at the beginning, and then it would be 0 pixels. It would start at the origin of the X, and then that would equally space them out depending on how many palettes, how many palette colors you have up at the top. And so since the way that it's all built feeds it back into the palette, references that to populate how many circles there are. So you could make this upwards of like 20 different colors and make the circles smaller and put different rows in, all sorts of stuff. The other thing they wanted us to check was like the background color, which is just here. This is the rectangle. That's that's the palette box. That's where this is. If you wanted to change that, if you wanted to put it on the side or something, you could do, let's see. How would you put it on? I don't know what all of these numbers do. So the first is the X, right? The second one, I think, is just the Y. Yeah, that makes sense. Move that up. The next one is like the horizontal dimensions, I believe. So let's flip these around. Let's make that 440 here, like the Y length, and then, so it's width and height, right? So 75. Okay. Weird. Does this not, what does this do if I put it to 0? Yeah, it just disappears. What happens if I put 800 on here? Where does that go? Weird. Is that the... I don't know what that is, actually. Okay, so this is where it's starting then, huh? Okay. Not sure what these numbers are. 500. It's like limiting it to... Oh, I see. The origin is what we want to change, right? So let's set these back to 440 and 75 like they were, and then change the origin here to be like y of 50. Where does that go? It doesn't go anywhere. It disappears. Y of negative 50 maybe? Nope. Nope. I don't know. I don't know where that's going. It's like, it's very much constrained to the bottom. Let's do like 100 there and see where this goes on the X. It just totally disappears. Is this any, what if we do 1? Yeah, it literally disappears if you don't have the origin set to 0. That's strange. I'm not sure what's going on with the palette box. This add rectangle at 0 and 475. Oh, this has to change, the origin of that. And then this is like the relative origin of the rest of it. So set that back to 0. Yeah, and then you could have the width and the height be different, and it would draw it from the top left down, versus before it was like drawing it from the bottom, that little bottom corner. If you wanted it to be, and then if you change this, yeah. So now flip these, 75 and 440. Yeah, and that's how you would make a side palette. You then have to shift those circles over. You basically have to change your spacing to flip as well. So these two values here would flip. Just flip your X and your Y's. Maybe not that way, because that's going to be off the screen, but put that to 0. Alright, yeah, put that to like 50. 50. Yeah, something, you know, it's probably like 25. Yeah, something like that. And then you could make this narrower so you don't block your Pegasus. You can move your Pegasus over. All sorts of things. You could put the palette on the side like that if you prefer. I kind of prefer that. Feels like, I don't know, closer to the Pegasus. Yeah, we'll go back to the standard, whatever they had. That was just 0. There we go. So that's how you change that. I don't know that there was anything else. They said that we could add in like extra shapes and stuff, but that takes a lot more work. You could design something in Illustrator, pop that in as a sprite, right? Make that clickable. Add the blend mode to the sprite. So you could design anything that you wanted to, instead of just like, they just basically did, I'm guessing that they imported paths from like Illustrator or something and just had it convert it to phaser code. That's a lot of code there. Or just like literally just drew it in phaser and then saved it out somehow. I'm not sure what they did there. Anyway, what you could do, which would be simpler, is design it in Illustrator or Photoshop and bring it in as a sprite, and then also like break up the layers to be like the arm and the leg or different layers, and set it up like we did here. You just wouldn't have like those 500 lines of code at the bottom. So that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, see, like all of this stuff too is just like rendering the Pegasus. You wouldn't need any of that. All you would need is a preload of the sprites wherever you store that, and then this add sprite, and then you could have the same like shape, but instead of shape you would have your sprite dot on and do the blend mode, or create a class for the sprites shapes and then do the same thing. Like, yeah, set up a function to where it creates it as a shape, or as an object, and then you add properties to that object, and then you allow it to be interactive and have the same functionality where it blends with the screen mode here. But yeah, and then the last thing they wanted us to do was add music. That would be within the preload. We would need to put in this add music or this sound ad and then put in something like that. I remember the sound one. It's probably like this music ad and then wherever your file is stored. Add music to your little coloring game. Yeah, okay, and then you could also do like different pages where you click over and then it populates a new scene. We haven't gotten to that stage yet. We're actually creating where we are creating different levels or different pages for our games. That'll be next, I bet. Yeah, okay, so what is up next? What's for tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to be looking at, drumroll please, creating a fantasy adventure game. Sweet. Create an action-adventure style fantasy story in Phaser using click events. Awesome. So we'll be looking at that hopefully tomorrow. And yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Implementing everything we've learned so far. Well, anyway, thank you for joining me if you did at any point in this. I hope you learned something. Hope it wasn't too frustrating. On YouTube, I'll probably cut out all of the struggle and just have it be right to the end where we got it. But anyway, have a good one wherever you are in the world. Live long and prosper. I'll see you later.